All right, guys, got the buttstock totally done. You can see, turned out great. Uniform from the top. And all I did was I took that squeegee, when I used the existing line right here and I cut it around, and then I took that squeegee and just worked the overlap inside, you know, and twisted it to where it would stick in there. But there's your buttstock, and now we're going to start on the receiver. Now with the receiver piece on these, because it's a single shot, you're going to have a lot of excess, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. You're going to have to do some cutting as you're going and doing this. Alright, you can see where I trimmed just the buttstock pieces, how much you have left over that you could use to scab in somewhere. Like if you messed up and cut a little too much or whatever, you can always use those pieces to scab back in, and that's the really cool part about it. And you can blend it in to where you can't even see it. Alright, so we're going to take the right receiver piece. Same thing, and what I do with a single shot that I found when I wrapped these before is I'm going to come in and lay it on where I want to. My cat's going crazy over here. Lay it where you want to. Go ahead and mash it down. And even though you got those pins and stuff, just kind of, you know, pull the, because you're going to get some wrinkles, just pull them out and, you know, keep going around it, and then you can come back and heat it up and really get down around it. And what I do is I cut those out. I don't want to leave those covered up. I go ahead and cut them out, and then you'll get down here to the bottom part of the receiver here, keep going downward all the way to the end. And I know now, I know where my end is. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go ahead, just so I'm not having to play around and you know, work with a bunch of excess on the end. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this off. Cut it off, and right there, there's a good sized panel for me to put on the red dot right there. So I'm going to put that back on there, and then I'm going to go back to working this piece. I'm going to pull it up, work the wrinkles out of it, start going around, moving it around. I always do the top first, just to see how much overlay I'm gonna have. And I come down here and I'm just gonna measure it kind of like right there. Alright, so I see I probably need to take this up, just because if I fold that right there, I'm not gonna have enough. Now I could take one of those little pieces and just scab in right there if I wanted to, and you'd never know the difference. Just lay it straight across the bottom. You might, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take one of those pieces and scab it across, just so I can show you how easy this stuff is to really work with. So I'm gonna take one of my little excess pieces that I got, and I'm going to go ahead and lift this side up right there, just like that. I'm going to take this piece just like it is right here. I'm going to cut it just a little bit more at a straight line like that. And this is, again, this is where having a sharp X-Acto knife comes into play. And then I'm just going to take it and put it in there like this. Just lay it into the bottom like that. Just to where it covers what I wanted it to cover, where I wasn't going to have enough to go into. I'm going to press it in real good around the trigger guard right there, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead right now, you can see that just like that. I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to trim around that trigger guard right there, and then I'm going to trim this excess off. And even doing pump or a semi-auto or anything like that, you're still going to have like extra little pieces that you can, you know, scab in and do this with. So it's not like, you know, just because this is a single shot, I have enough material to do this. It's not that way. You'll have enough to do everything you need to do. All right, I'm gonna take this piece right here. I'm going to just cut it straight down to the buttstock. Take that piece off, and now when I come around, I got a perfectly scabbed in piece, and you'll see how right here I'm gonna have enough material here to fold over into the bottom to give me, you know, over halfway. So that was my only problem point there, and I still have enough on the top to do what I need to do. So we're gonna finish that up, bringing it around, just looking and checking for wrinkles or anything like that as we're going. And then on stuff like this too, you'll have to go ahead and make some cuts as you're going, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. But I'll go ahead and run this up in there. Now when I come to here, I don't want to work that in too much because I don't want it to wrinkle, so I'm going to take and heat that piece up right here around the receiver, the top part of the receiver right there, just so I can mold it kind of down into it. I'm not going to go really far, I just wanted to, you know, where it'll mask it. Just like that. That's enough heat. And that's another thing, when it goes, if you have to keep, you know, picking it up and putting it down, picking it up and putting it down, it'll get to a point where it doesn't feel like the back is sticky anymore. Once you put heat to it, the stickiness, the adhesive comes right back. Don't ask me how, it just does it. All right, right here I have the barrel release, the action release right here. So I'm going to trim that real quick. I'm going to let it cool down for just a second, but I'm just going to I'm going to come in here right here next to it and just make a little incision on both sides, just to get around it. All right, and then come straight across the top of it, just make me a little box, and now I can fold it right over it and keep going and working it down to where I need to work it to. Here is where on a single shot it gets kind of tricky, because you know, you got to work around the hammer and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, just take your time and you can get it just as uniform, because you're going to end up trimming, you know, the pieces for the hammer, and let me move this a little bit, the pieces for the hammer and stuff like that, you're going to trim out anyway. So you still got plenty to overlap and pull, but you know, you're going to have some that you got to cut out. So don't really worry about, you know, if you kind of goof up here or here, because you're going to have to trim out a bunch of this on that. Now on a pump or a semi-auto, you don't have that to worry about. It'll just fold right over, and you just work it from both sides like you did with the buttstock. And then you'll come back on, say, a pump, and you're going to go around and cut your ejection port out. Or same way on a semi-auto, I pull my my bolt pin, my charging handle, I pull it out, and that way I just lay it flat over it, heat it, go push it all down into the ejection port and all that, and then I cut around it after I have molded it to the ejection port on a pump or a semi-auto, and then, you know, just pull your excess out, and it works out great. We're going to keep working this one in just like we're doing. Give it a little heat. And I'm going to go ahead, since I've already got this one like this, I'm going to go ahead and lay this entire piece is flat back here. I'm going to go ahead and lay it flat. Going to go ahead and stick it all the way down, and I can come back and trim it to halfway. You know, it's a little over halfway now, but I can always come back and trim that. So, because I got the other piece that's got to come off. And I'm going to do the same thing up here at the top. I'm just going to pull it, flatten it out, this is where the squeegee really comes into play, right here where the action knob is right here to break the barrel. Work it in right up under there, and then I'm going to cut that out too, so that's not going to be there. All right, and then at the top of the receiver, I'm going to do this one just like I did it on the last time, where you got your little kind of like aiming point right here, your little valley. I'm going to go to either side of that, and that's where I'm going to stop it. I'm going to leave just a little bit of the actual finish right there. I mean, you can cover up the whole thing if you wanted to. That's just the way I'm doing mine. I'm going to make sure I got enough material. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay it down, but then I'm going to come back and trim that piece out. Just like that. So you can see right there, I laid it in. Everything looks good, everything looks uniform. I'm gonna lay it down flat right there. And I'm gonna go ahead right here where the hammer is, right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. And I did replace my blade right after I got done with the buttstock. I went ahead and replaced the blade. I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. I'm going to come across right here where the hammer is. I'm going to go down inside that little crevice right there and cut over. And then what I'm going to do is once I cut over, I'm going to take this little bit of excess and I'm going to tuck it down into the back side right there, just to lip it over and stick it right there. And then I'm going to trace out the hammer over here like that, all the way up, over. All right, and that piece should come straight out. Yep, just like that. So now my action bar and my hammer is exposed. And this little piece right here, you can either tuck that in, because it's not gonna affect the hammer, because it's not gonna be in contact with the hammer or in front of the hammer, or you can just take and cut that little piece off. All right, so we got down to there. I need to cut right here, just to take this tab right here out. All right, and then just cut around what you got to cut around to get it the way you want it, or get it how you want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here, because I'm going to have enough on this other side. I'm going to go straight across and cut this entire tab out right there. Just like that. Alright, now we got that part out of the way. Now we're going to heat it up again and start working around the pins and stuff like that in the side. And go ahead and pull this down and start trimming on the bottom. But I'm going to work around my pins first. And here again, this is where that foam comes into play. Comes in real handy. You're gonna have some bubbles around these pins and stuff, like even on a like a pump or whatever, where you got your trigger pins and stuff like that go through. You're gonna have a bubble or two, but just put it on like that, let it sit for just a second, let it cool, and then just trim around. And you'll see when you trim around, even though it's got that little bit of a bubble around it, that when you trim it, it'll lay flat around your pins. I'm going to trim around the trigger right now. Start at the bottom, and then I'm going to come back in and just run the blade along the trigger guard is what I'm going to do, just to get it to where I need it. And then, okay, it comes up. So there, I can run it just like that. And then pull it the rest of the way down. Okay. Got the bottom worked in. Alright, now this is cool enough now to where I can go ahead and start trimming this. I can trim going around the receiver right here, the top part. And just like that. Run that out. And there's another nice little square piece that we can use for the red dot later on, and then we'll tuck all the edges down, and now I'm going to start trimming the pins out. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to face in toward the pins and just follow straight around them. That's all I'm going to do. Just tuck it as close to the pin as you can possibly get it. And I've done this a lot of different ways. I've even got like a small circular cutter and put them over there to try to turn it and pop them out, and it both works the same way. So just peel your excess. You can leave your pins covered if you want to. I just like the look of it. Looks more, to me, it looks more like a stock finish if you expose the pins, and that's what it's going to end up doing right there, like that. Come around the trigger guard. We lay that piece in right there. I'm going to trace the back side of the trigger guard right there. And then come right in here to the top part of it right there. There's a groove on most of them you can get into. I want to, when you're doing this to a pump or a semi-auto, you can follow the loading gate. Okay. But the biggest thing I can't stress enough is having a lot of those blades are your best friend when you're working with this stuff. Alright, we'll get right there on the front of that right there. We're going to run it straight up. Keep going straight up to the front right here. There's a little notch, and we're going to cut over just to follow it and cut that piece out. That way we're exposing the true trigger guard. And if you miss it, if you don't get it just right, just keep trimming until you get, you'll feel it. Your knife will, and that's one thing cool about these little knives is they'll get into these little creases and you can, you know, you can feel them. And so I'm gonna work back out here again, and I'm gonna work, there it is, I found it right there. And then just come straight across. Straight across that crease, just like that. And two, doing it this way, you don't run the risk of, you know, just going through and, you know, blind cutting and scratching your gun, because that's the whole point of, you know, that's one of the points of putting this stuff on there, is to protect it. All right, and there it is. And then just tuck in this little tag in right here. We'll tuck it down into that groove, just like that. And then finish cutting around the front, and then we'll trim the action button right here, work that in, and then we'll be done with this side. Tuck it. Got that done. That's rolled over. All right, now we're going to do the bottom right here. And just follow the receiver all the way around. Right, there's a little dip right there. And tighten your knife blade back up. Just like that, and then tuck in your excess. And then on the bottom, being that this is a single shot and it's got a slide, I always cut it away from your pivot point down here. Like I'll come back and I'm going to cut right in here, right there. I'm going to cut that away a little bit more, just to, you know, free up my pivot point so it doesn't mess with how smooth it opens or anything like that. And I'm just going to run my blade right along the bottom of it, just like that. And upward. And it's done. Alright. And now finish trimming your pins, and you're good to go. So I'm going to trim the pins out, flip it over, do the other side, and then we'll go on to the barrel. Alright guys, now that we got the receiver done, both sides, looks good. I'm really happy with the way it's turning out so far. I'm really liking this pattern. I don't have a gun and break up, so this gives me just another option. And you know, it's an all-around good pattern. I'm gonna get started on probably the two hardest pieces to do are the fore end and the barrel, just because of all of the contours and stuff, you know, just different planes you have to go through for the to put the fore end on. And on this one I got an extra little trick because I have the release, the takedown button that I'm gonna have to go around too. So we're going to get started on that, and we're almost there. Not cutting away or anything, just at this point right here I'm at 30 let me look and I'll tell you exactly. Just at this point right here I'm at 38 minutes on doing the receiver and the buttstock. So like I said in the previous video, you're looking at about an hour and 15 minutes. Just depends on how good you want it to look and how much time you take with it. It all depends on you, but fixing to get started on the receiver. And the way I do these is I take the receiver piece, put this down right here. I take the receiver piece and I put it next to it, and I'll cut I'll give myself about an inch on either side, and I'll cut it, and that way it just gives me some excess to work with if I have to get into some, you know, little nooks and crannies and stuff like that. It just gives you a little bit more material to play with. So I'm gonna get started on this and show you how I do this.